Hi everybody, my name is Liam Abramson and I am a board member of the Evergreen Chamber Orchestra, and welcome to our session today on the cello. And I have my daughter over here, Lior, and she is going to interview me about all questions to do about the cello. So, over to you.
Okay, the first question is, how many strings does this cello have?
Well, this cello actually has 4 strings, but there actually is a cello that has 5 strings. And it was an experiment which didn't really last very long, but one composer wrote a piece for a 5-string cello, and that was Franz Schubert, who wrote the Arpeggione Sonata for a 5-string cello. But pretty much every other cello has 4 strings.
Okay. Why is the cello called a cello?
Well, the word cello is actually a shortened version of a violoncello, which is like a violoncello, but we just call it a cello because to walk around saying violoncello would be really difficult all the time, so we just shorten it to the word.
How is the cello played?
Well, the cello in modern days is played by holding it between your legs, and then you've got the bow over here, which when you drag it across the strings makes a sound. And then you use your fingers on this side to change the notes. But before they invented this piece over here, which is called the spike or the end pin, you used to have to balance it on your knees, and that was what was known as a viola da gamba, basically a big instrument that you balance on your knees. But then they invented this to make it easier.
How do you spell cello?
How do you think you spell cello?
C-E-L-L-O.
Very good. So yeah, a lot of people spell it with a C-H, but because it's an Italian word, it's the C-E-L-L.
I've been as I was doing my research on the cello, it's pronounced cello, like with a C-H.
C-H, yeah.
But it's spelled with a C.
C-E. Absolutely. Very good.
Word.
It's a cool word.
What family is the cello in?
So the cello is a very good question. The cello is in the string instrument family. So if you look at an orchestra, you've got the brass family, that's the trumpets and the trombones, and you've got the woodwind family, and that's the clarinets and the oboes. You've got the percussion family, that's the timpanis and the cymbals and so on. But the cello is in the stringed instrument family, which is violins, violas, cellos, and double bass.
Okay, so I have facts, but I'm turning them into questions.
Okay.
Initially, sheep and goat guts were used to make cello strings.
That's correct.
And I'm wondering, do they still do that today?
So not really. So these strings are made out of metal. Some you'll find are made out of nylon. If you really, really want to be very authentic and play the cello the way it sounded 200-300 years ago, then yes, you can still buy some strings that are made from the authentic materials, but they're quite difficult to find.
And then the cello is used commonly in jazz, rock, and pop music. Do you play in jazz, pop, or rock music?
I do not. I would love to be able to play in jazz and to be able to make it up, but I am what's known as a classical cellist, and so I was trained in the classical world. So there was just a whole bunch of snow falling off the roof. That was pretty cool. I was trained in the classical world, but yes, cello is used in jazz, and you can also get electric cellos, which are used a lot in rock and pop.
And then my last fact is a person who plays the cello is called a cellist, or I can't read it.
A violoncellist. Usually just a cellist. It's just an easy way of saying it.
Okay. And how many people play the cello?
Well, you asked me that question earlier, and I didn't know the answer. So I looked it up on the internet. 200, and well, they said that there are about 10.3 million people in the United States who play the cello. And so if you extrapolate that across the population of the world, it's about 222 million people in the world who play the cello.
I think it was 200.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh. Yeah. Is the cello louder than a violin?
That's a difficult one to answer, and I would probably say in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. The violin can be very loud, but because it's also much more high-pitched, but a cello can be very loud with the bass strings, but it's probably about the same.
Is the cello harder than the guitar, like harder to learn?
I think it is harder to learn. The guitar has frets, so you can see where you put in your fingers and make certain notes, whereas as you can see over here, frets are those lines that go across here on the guitar. But on a cello, there's no frets, so you have to sort of learn where the notes go. Guitar is also, one hand is doing the fingering, the other hand is strumming, whereas here we've got the bow, which does a whole bunch of different things. So I think it probably is a little bit more difficult to play than the guitar.
Who invented the cello?
We don't know exactly who invented the cello. The cello evolved from the invention of the violin and the viola, and the viola da gamba, but we sort of do know that it was roughly invented sometime during the middle of the 16th century. So somewhere around about 1530, 1535 was probably when the cello was invented.
What language is cello from?
So it's from Italian. Which is,
how many notes does a cello play?
Ooh, that one I haven't calculated, but our lowest note is a bottom C, and our top note can be anywhere probably around about there is probably the top note. So actually it has the largest spread of notes out of all stringed instruments is the cello.
How long do cello strings last?
They can last quite a long time. These strings, depending on how you play the cello, of course, but these strings can probably last many months if you're playing it every single day. Sometimes they snap and they just break, just like anything that's pulled very tight can break. But I'd probably get 5-6 months out of these cello strings.
And then I didn't write this question down, but I'm wondering, what is this material? Like, what is the
This is just like cotton or silk that's wrapped around the bottom of the string. This does nothing at all, just makes it look nice, and can also differentiate sometimes between the different strings. But usually different manufacturers have different patterns over here, but it doesn't actually do anything for the actual sound of the string.
And then my last question is, I didn't write this one down either, is that how is the cello tuned?
So the cello is tuned in fifths, with an A being the top and a C being the bottom. And then they are tuned, all stringed instruments, cello, viola, violin, are all tuned in perfect fifths across, so that gives you the widest range.
Okay, that was my last question.
Well, thank you very much, and hopefully that's taught you something about the cello, and we'll be having more of these videos about different instruments from different members of the Evergreen Chamber Orchestra. Nice job.
Hi, we're Mike and Shirley Marecak, and we're going to play the first movement of the Jean Barrière Sonata for Two Cellos.